George Russell and Kimi Antonelli may have just pushed Mercedes into the most dangerous situation possible in Formula One. A full championship war, inside the fastest car on the grid. And Canada may have been the exact moment everything finally exploded. Because before the disaster, Russell and Antonelli were already fighting each other more aggressively than at any other point this season. Relentless DRS attacks. Hard defensive moves. Radio complaints exploding publicly. At one point, Antonelli even shouted, "He's using the whole track. He's not leaving me space." That was not normal teammate frustration anymore. That looked personal. And the terrifying part for Mercedes is this. George Russell was actually winning the fight. Sprint pole. Sprint victory. Grand Prix pole. Leading the race under massive pressure from Antonelli. For the first time all season, Russell finally looked ready to take control of the championship again. Then suddenly, his Mercedes completely died. No electronics. No MGUK. No regenerative braking. Nothing. And while Russell stood beside a dead car looking absolutely devastated, Antonelli inherited the lead and drove calmly toward another Formula One victory. That is when the emotional balance inside Mercedes completely changed. Because Antonelli no longer looks like the future of the team. He looks like the driver taking control of it right now. Another victory. Massive championship lead. The confidence of a future world champion already visible in every move. Meanwhile, Russell sounds like a driver emotionally cornered. Right now, it's his, unless he loses it. That does not sound like confidence. That sounds like frustration turning into resignation. But then came the line Mercedes should seriously fear moving forward. The pressure is gone now. I have nothing to lose. That changes everything. Because Formula One becomes incredibly dangerous when elite drivers stop racing strategically and start racing emotionally instead. Especially drivers like George Russell. Aggressive under braking. Willing to defend hard. Already frustrated by reliability failures this season. And here is where the story becomes even more explosive. Mercedes still cannot fully explain the catastrophic electrical failure that destroyed Russell's race in Canada. According to the concerns emerging after the Grand Prix, the likely issue involves the MGUK inverter system operating under extreme electrical stress from the new 2026 regulations. That should terrify Mercedes. Because if the fastest car in Formula One is already operating dangerously close to its technical limits, while both drivers are simultaneously pushing each other to the edge emotionally, this teammate war could explode at any moment. And once you understand what really happened during those brutal opening laps between Russell and Antonelli in Canada, the entire future of Mercedes suddenly looks far more unstable than anyone imagined. Subscribe if you love Formula One stories that reveal what teams desperately try to hide. At first, Canada looked like the perfect response from George Russell. The perfect statement weekend. Because for months, the entire Formula One world had slowly started shifting emotionally toward Kimi Antonelli. The unstoppable rookie. The future of Mercedes. The next world champion. Meanwhile, Russell was quietly becoming the forgotten contender despite driving at an incredibly high level. Canada was finally supposed to change that. And honestly, for almost the entire weekend, it did. Sprint pole. Sprint victory. Grand Prix pole. George looked untouchable. Calm under pressure. Aggressive when necessary. Completely in control of the fastest car on the grid. And maybe most importantly, he finally looked stronger than Antonelli again. That mattered emotionally inside Mercedes far more than people realized. Because when teammate rivalries become championship fights, every tiny psychological advantage suddenly becomes enormous. And Russell could feel momentum finally returning toward his side of the garage. You could see it immediately during the race. Every defensive move looked intense. Every braking battle looked personal. Especially once Antonelli started attacking repeatedly with DRS. Because Kimi no longer behaves like a rookie psychologically. Canada proved that completely. He attacked George fearlessly. Aggressively. Like a driver who genuinely believes the team already belongs to him. That changes everything inside a Formula One garage. At one point, Antonelli became so frustrated by Russell's defense that he exploded publicly over the radio. "He's using the whole track. He's not leaving me space." That sentence mattered enormously. Because drivers only communicate like that when the emotional tension underneath the rivalry is already boiling over. And inside Mercedes, everybody could feel the pressure rising lap after lap. Even Toto Wolff reportedly monitored the fight from the pit wall with visible tension while watching the telemetry. Now imagine the atmosphere inside that garage during those opening laps. The fastest car in Formula One. Two drivers fighting for the championship. Neither willing to back down. And underneath all of it, growing emotional pressure about the future leadership of the team itself. because Antonelli entered Canada carrying unstoppable momentum already. Victory after victory. The confidence of a future world champion becoming visible in every move. Meanwhile, Russell arrived carrying frustration. Reliability concerns earlier in the season. Missed opportunities. The emotional pressure of constantly hearing Formula One describe Antonelli as the future of Mercedes. That imbalance matters psychologically. Because one driver was racing with freedom. The other was racing like somebody trying to stop his future from being taken away. Then came lap 30. Turn 9. Russell leading comfortably. Antonelli still hunting him down. And suddenly, complete electrical collapse. No electronics. No MGUK. No regenerative braking. Nothing. Russell later described the moment brutally. Everything just switched off. And what makes this story emotionally devastating is this. George did almost everything perfectly that weekend. And still watched Antonelli inherit another victory while the championship gap exploded again. That kind of emotional damage changes drivers. Especially elite drivers. Which is exactly why Russell's post-race comments sounded so revealing. Right now, it's his, unless he loses it. That did not sound like confidence. That sounded like emotional exhaustion. But then came the line Mercedes should seriously fear moving forward. The pressure is gone now. I have nothing to lose. That changes everything. Because Formula One becomes terrifying when elite teammates stop racing strategically and start racing emotionally instead. Especially drivers like George Russell. Aggressive under braking. Willing to defend hard. Already frustrated by reliability failures this season. And now Mercedes faces the nightmare scenario every dominant team fears most. Antonelli racing with unstoppable confidence. Russell racing with growing anger. And a car that may already be operating dangerously close to its reliability limits under the new regulations. Then the real emotional fracture inside Mercedes started after the race ended. Because once the adrenaline disappeared, one terrifying reality became impossible to ignore. George Russell had just delivered one of the best weekends of his entire Formula One career. And still left Canada feeling like the championship was slipping away from him. That is psychologically brutal for any elite driver. Especially one fighting his own teammate. Think about the emotional contrast inside the Mercedes garage after the race. On one side, Antonelli celebrating another victory. Another trophy. Another extension of his championship lead. On the other side, Russell sitting with engineers trying to understand why his car suddenly shut down while leading comfortably. That emotional imbalance changes teams internally. Because momentum in Formula One is not just about points. It is about belief. And right now, belief inside Mercedes is starting to shift toward Antonelli very quickly. You can feel it everywhere. In the media narrative. In the confidence of the garage. Even in the way Antonelli now races George directly. Fearlessly. Aggressively. Almost like somebody who no longer sees Russell as the leader of the team. Canada proved that completely. Because younger drivers normally hesitate against established teammates. They calculate risk carefully. They avoid creating tension publicly. Antonelli did the opposite. He attacked harder every lap. Complained openly over the radio. And forced Russell into some of the most aggressive defensive driving we have seen from him all season. That is not a rookie learning anymore. That is a driver trying to take control. And honestly, George Russell knows it. That may explain why his post-race comments sounded so emotionally revealing. Right now, it's his, unless he loses it. That sentence carried frustration. But it also carried something else. Acceptance. Not full surrender. But the realization that the momentum inside Mercedes may already be moving away from him. That is dangerous emotionally. Because once elite drivers feel momentum slipping beyond their control, they usually react in one of two ways. Some become cautious. Others become aggressive. And Russell's next comment made it very clear which direction he may be heading toward. The pressure is gone now. I have nothing to lose. That sentence should seriously terrify Mercedes moving forward. Because drivers with nothing to lose stop racing strategically. Now every battle becomes emotional. Every overtake becomes personal. And every fight with the teammate becomes a statement about power inside the team itself. That is exactly how Formula One teammate wars become explosive. Especially because the technical situation inside Mercedes may already be unstable too. According to the concerns emerging after Canada, the likely cause of Russell's catastrophic retirement involves extreme stress inside the new MGUK inverter system under the 2026 regulations. That matters enormously. Because the electrical systems are now operating under almost 3 times the energy load compared to previous seasons. Which means the W17 may already be operating dangerously close to its technical limits during maximum pressure racing situations. Now combine that with two drivers racing each other emotionally every weekend. The stress increases. The aggression increases. The risk increases. Everything starts feeding into everything else. And that is where Mercedes may be entering truly dangerous territory. Because now the team is no longer managing one problem. It is managing three at the exact same time. A championship fight, a reliability concern, and a teammate rivalry that is rapidly becoming personal. That combination destroys stability inside Formula One teams very quickly, especially heading into Monaco, a circuit where qualifying pressure feels unbearable, where overtaking is nearly impossible, and where one blocked lap between teammates can create emotional damage lasting an entire season. Mercedes understands this history better than anyone. Hamilton versus Rosberg started with small emotional cracks too. Then eventually, the entire relationship collapsed under championship pressure. And honestly, after Canada, the Russell versus Antonelli rivalry is starting to show disturbingly similar warning signs. One driver becoming increasingly confident. The other becoming increasingly volatile. One feeling the future belongs to him. The other fighting desperately to stop that future from arriving. And underneath all of it, a car that may already be operating on the edge mechanically. That is not a stable championship team anymore. That is a team entering survival mode emotionally. Which may be why the paddock suddenly stopped asking whether Mercedes can win the championship, and started asking whether Mercedes can survive itself first. But the most terrifying part of Mercedes' situation may be what happens if this rivalry reaches Monaco without being emotionally controlled first. Because Monaco does not forgive unstable teams. It exposes them. Completely. And after Canada, Mercedes suddenly looks emotionally unstable for the first time in years. Think about the psychological state of both drivers right now. Antonelli arrives carrying unstoppable momentum. Another victory. Massive championship lead. The confidence of somebody who genuinely believes the sport is starting to belong to him. Meanwhile, Russell arrives carrying something much more dangerous. Frustration mixed with freedom. And that combination creates chaos in Formula One. Because when drivers stop feeling pressure, they stop protecting consequences. Russell practically admitted that himself. The pressure is gone now. I have nothing to lose. That sentence changes the entire emotional landscape inside Mercedes. Especially at Monaco. A circuit where qualifying laps become psychological warfare. Where one blocked corner can create hatred instantly. And where teammates fighting for a championship become incredibly dangerous. Now imagine Russell and Antonelli separated by only a few thousandths during qualifying. One trying to protect momentum. The other trying to stop the season from slipping away completely. That is explosive emotionally. Especially because Canada already exposed how aggressive their racing has become. Antonelli attacked relentlessly with DRS. Russell defended harder every lap. Radio complaints exploded publicly. At one point, Antonelli openly accused Russell of using the entire track and leaving no space. That was not controlled teammate communication anymore. That was emotional escalation happening live on team radio. And the terrifying part for Mercedes is this. Neither driver appears willing to step back now. Antonelli smells a world championship. Russell feels his future position inside the team being threatened. That creates desperation naturally. And desperation changes everything about how drivers race each other. Especially elite drivers. Because eventually, these battles stop being about points. They become about identity. About authority. About proving who the team truly belongs to under pressure. And after Canada, Antonelli suddenly looks like the emotional center of Mercedes. That shift matters enormously inside Formula One garages. Mechanics feel it. Engineers feel it. Strategists absolutely feel it. Momentum spreads emotionally through teams faster than people realize. Especially when one driver keeps winning. And another driver keeps suffering devastating setbacks despite performing brilliantly. That is why Canada may have affected Russell so deeply psychologically. Because he finally proved he could beat Antonelli across an entire weekend. He was faster. More complete. More composed under pressure. Then the car failed anyway. And Antonelli still inherited another victory. That kind of emotional experience can destroy trust very quickly. Trust in momentum. Trust in luck. Trust in whether the season is unfolding fairly around you. Again, not conspiracy. Emotional trust. And once drivers lose that trust, their racing changes permanently. More aggression. More emotional decisions. Less patience. Exactly the kind of mentality Mercedes should fear entering the next phase of this championship fight. Especially because the technical side of the story still remains deeply uncomfortable. According to the concerns emerging after Canada, Mercedes may already be operating the West 17 dangerously close to the electrical limits created by the new 2026 regulations. That means every aggressive wheel-to-wheel battle between Russell and Antonelli potentially increases mechanical risk too. Now combine emotional instability with technical fragility. That is a nightmare scenario for any championship team. Because eventually, something breaks. The relationship, the reliability, or both at the exact same time. And Toto Wolff understands this danger better than anyone. That is why his post-race comments sounded so careful. We want drivers who fight to win. But we cannot have incidents that hurt the team. That did not sound like confidence. That sounded like warning signs already appearing internally. Because deep down, Mercedes may already realize the terrifying truth Canada exposed. This is no longer a healthy rivalry pushing the team forward. It is becoming a power struggle inside the fastest car in Formula One. And once teammate rivalries become power struggles, Formula One history shows they almost never end peacefully.